If anybody has played Doom Eternal's multiplayer, which is battle mode, the number one thing I've seen all over the place is either Demon is overpowered or Slayer is overpowered. Everyone has their own reasons for thinking the way they do, and with battle mode functioning the way it does, it's very hard for people, dare I say impossible, to come to a unanimous decision over which side has the edge in the game mode. As somebody that has played a ton of this mode and played as both sides while doing it, I wanted to put this video together that explores a whole bunch of variables that have led to the Doom community being so split down the middle on this one. I highly encourage discussion in the comment section as well, because I would love to develop this conversation further. For now, let's analyze the art of battle mode and why people just can't come to a consistent decision over which side has the edge. For those uninitiated, battle mode is an asymmetric 2 vs 1 round-based deathmatch. 2 demons and 1 slayer. Demons have their own attacks and abilities and can summon buffs, debuffs, other demons, etc. to trap the Slayer and get his stack down to 0. Slayer is fully kitted out, and he has to both survive and take out the 2 demons attacking him. The first side to win 3 rounds wins the game, and between each round, players can give themselves bonuses that make them stronger in certain areas for the rest of the game. That is the gist of it, and you're presented a ton of options, and players go with what they feel is right for the situation. It is extremely customizable. The point I want to make initially is that it's not so surprising the community is so divided. This type of multiplayer that doesn't offer both sides an identical experience is naturally going to steer one side into seeming more beneficial because of what any player could want out of the experience that they don't have and the other side does. It is not so uncommon in these asymmetric experiences that this does get brought up quite frequently. That said, there are so many factors in play that can affect an opinion, and it extends beyond the game mode itself. I'm going to start with one side and move on to the other one, exploring strengths and weaknesses that might cause them to either thrive or struggle. I'll try and keep it as digestible as possible because there's a lot going on. Also, I don't want to cover end of round upgrades too much here. I want to look at the base kits and talk about upgrades when they're appropriate. I figured it would be appropriate to start with the Slayer first, and before we start, I'm definitely not claiming to be a god tier Slayer in this mode, right? I'm okay, and I do win most of my games, but that does kind of feed into a point that I want to make straight away. If you've come across a Slayer in battle mode, and you've been absolutely deleted in fights, it is all down to using the right weapons. The Slayer understands the game's combat, and is the most threatening of all the Slayers you can encounter. If you understand combat in Doom Eternal, Slayer is far more straightforward. All of your weapon combinations work exactly the same in multiplayer as they do in campaign, and as long as you understand that keeping your stack up is important and manage your ammo carefully, using the right weapons against most demon players will dismantle them before they even start a fight at all. I've lost count over how many games I have where it seems like demon players aren't respecting my ranged options at all really, and I either take them out from long ranges, or they lose at least half of their HP before we begin fighting in any way. But let's look at the numbers real quick and why this is the case. There are some extra elements that some people may not be considering here. If you're looking for range damage to chip away as the Slayer, this is why it's so effective. Precision Bolt on the heavy cannon does 400 damage a shot. Ballista, regular shot, does 600. That is 1000 HP in total in one 2-piece combo. A combo not so difficult to hit because the demons, with the exception of Marauder, are very large bodies, so it's easier to hit them with stuff. For weaker HP counts like Marauder and Revenant, that is half of their life gone instantly. Without the defensive action set, that is damage you're not getting back either. If players don't respect your options here and use cover to the greatest of their abilities, you'll have an instant advantage, and the demon players now have to run away from you, not the other way round. This can feel really powerful, and don't get me wrong, it is. But when the fight goes range damage to start, fight up close later with Ballista, SSG, rocket launcher, chain gun, it results in demons being dismantled, and probably feeling like they're just not allowed to play the game. But this combat style goes beyond just damage alone, and I want to put a couple of things forward, especially if this speed of gameplay is something you haven't really seen before. This degree of combat is very PC heavy. Mouse and keyboard allows a Slayer to cycle through weapons at a way faster rate because every important weapon is bound to its own key. PC players would have set up their own custom bindings to get weapons out even faster, and the quick switching ability of combat is also better on keyboard because pad players for the most part have to set up like a couple of weapons and then quick switch between them. PC slayers have the luxury of those really fast and precise weapon swaps into pot shots with things like cannon and ballista. I'm not saying that console players can't do this at all, but PC players have a lot more control over all of these weapon selections thanks to quick switching. It's no wonder I see a lot more console players say that they feel demons are really powerful because perhaps console slayers don't have the same weapon tools available to them. I'm not saying this to look down on anybody either, please understand that. I'm looking at it on an analytical level as that's entirely the point of this video. A Slayer using all of the right weapons and playing at lightning speed thanks to good use of dash can be unbearably overwhelming. All it takes is one solid range shot to put you at enough health down that you've got to be careful and the Slayer can now be aggressive. At this stage, a lot of players have kind of set up and decided that Slayer is simply the more powerful option, and I don't blame them for thinking that. It is indeed unbearable and, dare I say, more common on PC, at least because of a few things. Slayer only has to worry about their own skills and decision making. Demons that are matchmaking by themselves, and especially not using voice chat, simply won't have the same coordination that you need to tackle a Slayer of that caliber. If demons aren't communicating and not on the same page either, it's a matter of time really until one of you gets hit by range, picked off, and the fight falls to pieces. You can really tell as the Slayer who is in a party and who isn't. It's fairly obvious in the gameplay. The simple fact that Slayer doesn't need to sync up with anybody to play their role properly means that Slayer gets a much more regular representation of their role at play on a decent level. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. I've had my fair share of games where it can be really tough, and it is entirely down to the skill of the demon players in question. Check out some of these clips. On top of being able to just play smarter and simply deny ranged angles using cover and player outlines, you can do a lot more to force Slayer out of their comfort zone and set you up for an attack. Archvile natively has tools for shutting down range damage with the Flame Wall. Soak up the ammo, provide a barrier for yourself and your demon teammate, while demons on the map just start doing work. Slayer all of a sudden has to stay on the move completely and it becomes way less one-dimensional, I suppose. The demon player understands the strength of the Slayer and the range, and instead of accepting that maybe Slayer is just too powerful, is looking for ways to tackle that playstyle and turn it into any advantage or at least a way of leveling the playing field. And it really can work. This was a super competitive map and I was sweating all the way through. The two demons had a high player rank and I was ready for a good match in all honesty. My goal was to take out the Bancubus first because of his crazy damage and slower movement, then try and chip away the Archvile when I could. It resulted in a really fun map that I only won because of a crucial mistake the Archvile made. He gave me a line of sight and was one ballista shot away from death. Had it not been due to that error, I would have lost this map for sure. Woo! Hell yeah, baby! Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Oh my god! Holy shit. I then encountered a double Marauder setup later that day. It took map 1 to realise what they were doing, which was quite inspiring actually. I'd never seen this technique before. Marauder is the smallest of the demons, which makes getting a shot off from range a lot harder. Even though Marauder has a small HP count of 2000, they have a smaller hitbox. They would set up shop while denying angles from me, but also put demons on the map to keep me busy. When the time was right, dogs come out for extra damage and targets to choose from and all-out aggression. Super coordinated. In the second map, I was a bit more wise to it and ready to fight, but they were really overwhelming. And they prioritized the aggressive action set, something you don't often see, putting damage areas down near teleporter, reading my escape path, and cutting me off completely. It was close, but they had the edge again. And the thing is, I'd never played a team like that before, which brings me to my final Slayer note here. It is a lot more rare to find a demon team this coordinated on a regular basis, which is no surprise. You can't just jump into battle mode, pick a demon, and then start destroying good Slayer players. However, without a deep understanding of the game's combat and damage output, which is very important, a really good Slayer from single player could jump into battle mode and really cause trouble for demon players if they just know the right weapons and good movement. Slayer is more powerful than demons in the opinion of some players, but I don't really look at it that way. To me, the strength of the Slayer is that the Slayer is lower maintenance and doesn't really require as much to be immediately powerful with. You can do Maternal at its base, and the battle mode experience simply decides what upgrade you take at the end of a round or something. You can play on a fundamentally strong level, and then upgrade your game plan around how the demons play. Do they loot block more than most? Do they struggle to chase your dash? Do you need more health from demons? Etc. Slayer is Slayer, no matter the game mode, and that is why Slayer is consistently represented better in the multiplayer experience. In my opinion, of course. Demons are an entirely different kettle of fish, and the role I actually play more consistently thanks to a good community of Doom players that love the multiplayer as much as I do. Before we start, my demon experience is purely with a coordinated teammate with voice chat. I never have and never will matchmake demon by myself. I just don't think you have the same level of communication or planning that is required to consistently win. My multiplayer experience is, if I'm playing alone, I go Slayer. If I'm playing with mates, always demon. That's basically it. And with that in mind, demon is a role that can be way more up in the air, and to me, a lot more can go wrong. But when you're synced up, can be insanely dangerous and offer a truly unique experience, especially if you're playing with the right person. First of all, like when I discussed the Slayer, it is much harder to get demon players on the same page because, in my opinion, the barrier of entry as a demon is a bit more overwhelming, perhaps. You have more new tools to choose from, you have to summon things, you have intense cooldowns to worry about. Basically, you have to trial by fire the learning experience, but hey, the best way to learn something is by doing anyway. My point is, reaching that level where you understand not only the game mode, but how to effectively maximize your own demon, where you can start synergizing with another player, definitely doesn't happen straight away, so you're likely to lose a lot more to reach that point, especially if you're matchmaking by yourself. With a coordinated teammate, you can do things like set up the order of who loot blocks first, who uses their heal first if you're both rocking the defensive action set, stuff that will make or break a competitive style match that you just can't do if you're not synced up with your demon teammate. So why is the demon side seen as so overwhelming? First of all, the enemy Slayer will get punished hard for not using the right weapons. The higher level strategies of playing it safe, picking defensive positions, and using your summon demons to cause havoc first for draining ammo and the like is only massively necessary when you know what you're up against. The first round is enough time to realize what kind of Slayer you're facing, and if they're just not using range damage as you close distance, you can be immediately aggressive, and simple sustain and flanking can often be enough to take a clean 3-0 against the Slayer. When a Slayer is using the right weapons for the right time, it changes the matchup entirely, and you, as the demon team, need to start playing around that and showing a lot of discipline to not give away an opening. Although I do just fine with the Slayer, I actually have an easier time winning with the demons when I play the mode, and it's not because demons are easier to win with. Far from it, in fact. Against a lot of Slayer players, I truly believe that if I wasn't paired with a teammate that I trust and have played this game with a lot, we wouldn't have had the synergy required to inch out those clutch rounds, those final moments where if you're not working together down to the second, the Slayer will just get away and finish you off later. It's a level of coordination that was always designed to be the way it is, but you may rarely see it in general matchmaking because it is trickier to set up two coordinated demon players than it is to solo queue with the Slayer. The entire motto for battle mode was pushed as strategy versus skill, and I really think that's the case. Demons can't, under any circumstances, 1v1 a Slayer in traditional combat. You need strategy, otherwise the Slayer will dismantle you. It is by design to be that way, but when you understand the mode and its mechanics, the demon players get a lot more creativity and options to tackle the Slayer. The natural differences in the demons and their attacks, the upgrades that you can equip in between rounds, the third almost end of game upgrade where your options when combined become drastically different. I mean, look at this clip where the use of instant resurrect was the one and only thing that saved us in the match. The demons and their way of working around the map to trap the Slayer evolves as the rounds progress. Slayer's options will simply be more efficient ways to do what he's already doing, which means that if your team sticks to a strategy that works, the Slayer lowering cooldowns or getting a bit more health after a demon kill won't really change the flow of the match. It's strategy above all else, and when you get it down, the Slayer needs to be really on the ball if they're going to conquer it, but they do have every single tool they could possibly need to do that. Finally, and this applies to both sides, Player attitude makes a massive difference in this kind of discussion. If we're deciding which side is arguably the stronger side, we do need to make sure that we've played enough against decent players to reach that conclusion, right? I've lost count on both sides how many times I've won a game convincingly, but then the opposition just leaves after a single game. Assumingly, one of the reasons could be because it wasn't very fun losing in that fashion. Now, I totally understand that players do not owe you their time, and they're not obligated to stick around. They can totally play the game they've purchased however they want, that's fine. But when we're talking about balance and really giving both sides a fair shot to ensure that we're doing everything we can to answer back to tools that we might find on face value to be too strong, we have to give those players a chance to see what the deal is. It's the only way to reach any next level you could be trying to reach. Learn by doing, and losing can often be the best teacher. In my experience as a competitive player for other games across the years.
Cap the teleporter. I'm forcing him into teleport. Force him. Force him. What's up, man?
Did you wait for him to go through the teleporter?
Yeah, I knew he was going to go there.
Nice.
So, now we've reached the end of things, here are some end of video points that I've come to realise as a battle mode player. I don't think that right now we can really unanimously decide which side of the coin is the better version, and I'm not sure we ever will. This mode is so heavily dependent on player skill, experience, knowledge, execution, and many other variables that no two matches of battle mode are often exactly the same. When you have two good demons and a good slayer, the map might make a huge difference. The size of it, the room to escape, amount of cover that demons can use to get around range damage, escape options for either side, what demons are even in play. Not to mention the upgrades they take, which is definitely variable right now because you take upgrades depending on what the other side is doing against you. They loot block a lot, chainsaw upgrade. They struggle to hit a moving target or chase you, dash upgrade. The same thing applies for demons. I use it with the Revenant all the time. Console versus PC might change some player minds too. If the Slayer isn't as able to swap weapons as efficiently because controllers don't have the same weapon binding possibilities as keyboard, I understand why demons might be more overwhelming on that version. On PC, with a Slayer that can play lightning fast and pump out damage at a scary rate, you have to go with different strategies to snuff it out. Ultimate defense and sustainability works wonders, but then again, so can all-out aggression to stop the Slayer from getting started. But most players that you encounter don't have that next level of strategy, right? Again, making this such an insanely individual player-focused experience. Ultimately, I like the discussion because it pushes either side to evolve their game plan even further to ensure that you have every advantage you can give yourself at a higher level of play. I wasn't too sure about battle mode when I first heard about it, I admit, and I didn't know what kind of layers the mode would offer in terms of replayability, but playing it every day since launch, the community is still finding new strats, new techniques on both sides. The meta as we know it is evolving alongside it, and I'm really curious to see if we can have a similar conversation in a few months' time, or who knows, maybe next year to see where we're at. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope I've been able to kind of open up this discussion further than it originally was. Nobody is right or wrong in this conversation, and I want to hear what you have to say. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Help! Help! Yes! Yes!
Yes! Oh my god, dude! You
Oh my
carried me
god.
that round so hard.
I love you, Swan. I love you, mate.
Oh.